This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Yeah. So I won't be here on the 15th.
Okay.
Okay. And then we'll, yes, the 8th, yes, the 22nd, and we'll see about the 29th. And before we get started back to our Shabbos, so just important to know that we are coming up on, okay. Yeah. So July 13th is a fast day. It's the 17th day of Tammuz. Okay. That starts, and that is the date when a number of things happened. But let's say most impactfully, that is the date when Moshe came down from Mount Sinai with the tablets, saw the golden calf, and shattered the tablets. Okay? And as our fast days all relate to Israel, with the exception of the rabbinic fast days. There's one Torah level fast day, and that is Yom Kippur. Okay? We have 5 rabbinic fast days. Of the rabbinic fast days, one of them does not relate to Jerusalem, and that would be Purim time. Tanit Esther, the fast of Esther, that we do the day before Purim. Okay? The reason we fast on that day is not because Esther fasted before she went to Achashverosh. That was about 9 months before that. And that was a 3-day fast. The reason we fast on the day before Purim is because that was the day that was set for us to go to battle against our enemies. And when we would go to battle, we would fast on that day. Even though it seems to be counterintuitive, you don't want to be feeling weak and sluggish and tired and headachy and kvetchy, right, from fasting, right, when you want to go into battle. But we did that because we recognized that the battle is in God's hands, not ours. And we need to go fight, but ultimately the victory comes from Hashem, and therefore the fasting is not simply to not eat, the fasting is to bring oneself to an elevated spiritual state. So that is the one of the 5 that is not related to Jerusalem. All the other 4 rabbinic fasts are related to Jerusalem. In the winter, that's the shortest fast that we have. It comes out usually in usually early January, one of the shortest days of the year. That is the fast of the 10th of Tevet, and that is when the siege was placed on Jerusalem. What's coming up on July, what did we say? July 13th? What's coming up on July 13th is the 17th day of Tammuz, and that is when the walls of Jerusalem were breached. 3 weeks later, on Tish'a B'Av, on the 9th day of Av, that is when the temple was destroyed. Both the first temple and the second temple were both destroyed on that date of Tish'a B'Av. I will come back to that in a moment. And on the 3rd day of Tishrei, that's the day after Rosh Hashanah, that's known as Tzom Gedalia. Tzom means the fast of Gedalia. Gedalia was appointed by the Romans after they had destroyed the temple. He was appointed by the Romans to be like the Jewish governor in charge of the Jews there that remained in Jerusalem. And another Jew by the name of Yishmael was hired by the nations around who did not want there to be any presence of Jews left in Israel, left in Jerusalem. And he came and he killed Gedaliah. And the vast majority of Jews at that point were afraid of the repercussions that they had killed. They, meaning a Jew, had killed the Roman appointed governor, and therefore they fled from Jerusalem. So we have the siege beginning. we have the walls being breached, we have the temple being destroyed, and we have the remnant fleeing. Those are the 4 rabbinic fasts that are related to Jerusalem. And the one that's not, again, is Tanit Esther before Purim. All of these minor fasts are only fasting during the day, whereas Yom Kippur starts the night before. Besides Tisha B'Av, the other 4 rabbinic fasts start with daybreak and continue until the day is out, until the nighttime when the stars come out. During that time, we're allowed to wash our hands. We're even allowed to brush our teeth. Just be careful not to swallow. One is allowed to shower. It's just eating that one does not do.
So we're going to start from the sun up, sunrise to
Not
sunrise.
sunrise, but daybreak. Daybreak is typically about 72 minutes before actual sunrise. Let me look at a very good app to have, guys. The one that I have, there are many. I have Cal J. That's what it looks like over there. You can see Cal J, like the little blue square. And it gives you all of the timing. So let's say today, Netz Hachama is at sunrise is 5:44. Alot HaShachar, the morning begins, is 4:14. So that actually is 90 minutes before Netz Hacham, before actual sunrise. I'm sorry?
Make your app.
Yep, it looks like this.
No, it is.
I lost it.
Yeah.
Not the one with the candles. Cal J.
Cal J. Okay.
Okay.
Is head count?
I'm sorry?
Is head count pretty?
I'm sure it's also fine. Yeah. I also have Shabbat Times. It's a great app.
I already did that.
Yeah, that my son-in-law put that together. My son-in-law Shalom, and that is a great app. Lets you know what time candlelighting is and what time actual sunset is. Candlelighting, we know, of course, is 18 minutes before, and that gives you and from multiple cities. So you could add in. You have different cities. If you have, thank you. Got a little clumsy there. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now. So July 13th is Shivasa B'Tammuz, but it's not just these points on the map, on the calendar, July 13th, and then 3 weeks later on Sunday will be on August 3rd will be Tisha B'Av. Oh, so I'm starting to say before. So all of these fasts, the 4 fasts besides Tisha B'Av, they are lighter fasts. Okay, if a person's not feeling well, right? If a woman is pregnant or nursing, so then we suspend those fasts for her. Okay, and it's only daytime, and it's only eating and drinking, and there's no issue in terms of any footwear, right, etc. Tisha B'Av, which is the date of the destruction, that's August 3rd this year. That is a much stricter fast. It begins the night before. There's a special reading of a Megillah, special one of the Megillot. We have different Megillot scrolls that we read, right? On Shavuot, we read the book of Ruth. On Purim, we read the book of Esther. Pesach, we read Song of Songs. On Sukkot, we read Ecclesiastes, Kohelet. And on Tisha B'Av, we read Eicha, Lamentations, and we don't sit on chairs. We're like mourners. We sit on a low bench or on the floor. Okay, I'm sorry.
When on Yom Kippur?
On Tisha B'Av.
It's on the 13th.
On the 3rd. That's 3 weeks after that. On the 3rd, August 3rd is the 9th of Av. Okay, we'll go over this again next week because they will already be starting then. and that is a very strict fast. We don't wash, we don't bathe at all, we don't wash at all. Even the negovasa that we do in the morning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Normally we wash up until our wrists, then we only wash until our knuckles. Okay? So that is, we don't wear leather shoes. Literally, we adopt many of the customs of a person who is in mourning. Mourning in Avel is if a person loses one of the 7 closest relatives. That's 2 upper generation parents, 2 down generation, son, daughter, 3 parallel generation, brother, sister, spouse. For any of those, we become an Avel, a mourner, and then for a week, we don't sit on a regular chair. We sit on a lower chair. We don't wear leather shoes, right? We don't bathe in a normal fashion. So on Tisha B'Av, we all go into this state of mourning. But in addition to that, from the 17th of Tammuz, which was July 13th, until August 3rd, those are called the 3 weeks. And that is 3 weeks of intensifying mourning or abstaining from different things. During that time, one would not be listening to live music, right? Starting with Shivasa B'Tammuz, the 3 weeks begin. One won't listen to live music. One, or even many people don't listen even to recorded music on the radio, whatever it might be, right? One would not go to watch a movie during that time. Men don't shave or don't take haircuts during that time. The same way that a mourner doesn't shave and doesn't take a haircut. Well, the Ashkenazic custom is that starts already then during the 3 weeks. Then we come to what's called the 9 days. And that is once we hit the beginning of the month of Av. So that is on Shabbos, July 26th. That is when the 9 days begin. And during those 9 days, besides Shabbos, we don't eat milk. We don't eat any meat or chicken. We don't drink any wine. Again, besides Shabbat, right? There's no meat. There's no wine. We don't do laundry, right? We don't wear freshly laundered garments, which means that what one can do is one can pre-wear some garments for like 10, 15 minutes and then have garments for that week. That doesn't include undergarments, okay? That one should wear fresh undergarments. But we're talking about, outer garments, blouses, skirts, dresses, pants, whatever, shirts, whatever it might be. So there one does not wear. And again, this is all increasing. Now, normally on Erev Tisha B'Av, we have what's called a Seuda HaMafseket, which is the last meal before we go into the fast, and that we sit on the floor already, and we eat just bread and a hard-boiled egg dipped in ashes. That's what we normally do on the day before Tisha B'Av. This year, that Tisha B'Av falls out on a Sunday, and therefore the day before that is Shabbat, so we don't have that this year, okay? But that is what's called the Seuda HaMafseket. And there are no weddings that are scheduled during those 3 weeks.
Done the day before, like a Thursday.
Mm-mm.
No.
Doesn't happen at all. The Seuda HaMafseket does not happen. When Erev Tisha B'Av, the day before Tisha B'Av, is Shabbos, we don't have what's called the Seuda, the meal HaMafseket, that separates, that gets us ready for Tisha B'Av.
And so then that would have been only if it was like not on Shabbos, because it would happen during the daytime before.
Correct. If we have a Monday Tisha B'Av, so Sunday night is when. Now, also, we don't wear leather shoes, okay? So it gets a little more complicated with Shabbos going into Tisha B'Av, right? So those who will be here, right? Typically, one would bring before Shabbos the non-leather shoes to slip into, or to wear non-leather shoes already. Going into that. Okay. and we dim the lights here at night from Ma'ariv, and it is a it's not, we don't greet one another. You know, we take a lot of pride in being a friendly social sort of synagogue, but that's not the time to be, hi, how you doing, what's up, what's going on, right? After davening, we sort of go home. Yeah. Okay. So that is the somber time of what's called the 3 weeks. Okay, the 3 weeks from Shivasa B'Tammuz. It's actually 22 days. It's Sunday. This year it's Sunday through Sunday. Sunday the 17th of Tammuz is July 13th, and that goes through Sunday, August 3rd. That is Tisha B'Av. Okay? So we'll do more, but important to know what's coming up. And those of you who have the 3-volume book of our heritage, that is an amazing resource, and that will go through. It goes through each month and all the things that apply in that month, whether it's laws, whether it's customs, whether it's explanations and medrash and stories. It's a wonderful resource. Okay, with that introduction, let us get back to where we are.
127.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll go right to 129. When Shabbos is over, that's the time of Tzeit HaKochavim, when 3 small stars appear in the sky. The specific time varies from place to place, and that's why we have our Jewish calendar. That's why you also, like the Beth Jacob calendar that we give out. That is all the proper times. Typically, it's about 42 minutes after sunset. Okay, don't try to determine, do I see 3 stars, not 3 stars? We have a lot of light pollution, they call it. It's very hard to see what's going on up there. We have cloudy Saturday nights, even in California sometimes, right? So we go by the calendar, and typically it's 42 minutes after. So pretty safe is an hour after candle lighting. Candle lighting is 18 minutes before sunset, 18 plus 42. Shabbos ends 42 minutes after sunset. So typically it's about an hour, but you check the calendar, or if you have either any of the apps, I have CalJ, so that will let you know. Tzeit HaKochavim is 8:40, right? Yeah. Okay. So weekly timetables, Jewish calendars. Okay, one may not resume work prohibited on Shabbat on Saturday night before the time listed in that locality. Okay, Mariv, not going to go into that. Noam, we're not going to go into that. Kiddush Levana, we're not going to go into that, or the time for Kiddush Levana. Okay, Havdalah. Okay. Havdalah on page 134. What does Havdalah mean? Yes. Well, that's what we do to end Shabbos. The actual word Havdalah means to separate. Hamavdil, that God, the blessing that we say is that God separates between Kodesh, L'chol, between the holy and the mundane, Bein Yisrael, La'amim, between the nations and Israel, Ben Yom HaShavi, between the 7th day, L'Sheshet Yimei HaMaaseh, the 6 days of action, Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you God, Hamavdil, who separates Bein Kodesh L'chol, between the holy and the mundane. And we mentioned before that Shabbos, there are 2 words that are used in the 10 Commandments to describe Shabbos. It's Zachor and it's Shamor. Zachor is to mention or to remember. Shamor is to safeguard. Safeguard refers to those things on Shabbat that we abstain from doing, the 39 malachot that we will get to shortly in this book. And the Zachor is to mention Shabbos. And we mention Shabbos on the way in by making... We mention Shabbos on the way in by making, before the meal, Kiddush, right? That is how we fulfill the mitzvah of the Torah of Zachor, mentioning the Shabbos on the way in. And we mention Shabbos on the way out with Havdalah, okay? When an important guest arrives, they don't just plop in, they don't just slide out of the house. We welcome them in and we escort them out, okay? So we herald their arrival, we announce their departure. That is the Kiddush, and that is the Havdalah. Okay? The text is found in the Sidurim. Okay? Various verses followed by the blessing on wine. Okay? And then 3 other blessings we'll soon see. The cup is filled until it overflows to symbolize abundant blessing. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Havdalah is not part of Shabbos though, right? And I'm asking because you light a candle.
Okay. Okay, good. So you need to light a candle, right? So one will need to, well, you can't do Havdalah until Shabbos has ended, and one will need, before lighting the candle, right? So we have a catch-22, right? Havdalah will enable you to do the non-Shabbos activities. Right? Lily's asking a good question. So we're stuck over here. Havdalah is what will enable you to do malacha, to do the things not allowed on Shabbat. Havdalah will allow you to do that. Part of Havdalah is having a candle lit, having a fire. So you have to light the candle. So how do you light the candle before you do Havdalah? Okay? So the way that we do that is as follows. In the Ma'ariv that men say, women do not daven Ma'ariv typically, right? In the Ma'ariv that men say, we have a little paragraph of Havdalah insert into our Amidah. So once one has said that, one can do Malacha, but still need to make Havdalah. A woman who's not doing that, so a woman should say the words, Baruch Hamavdiel Bein Kodesh L'chol. Blessed is the one, Baruch Hamavdiel, who separates between Kodesh, the holy, and the Chol, and the mundane. And doing that is a quasi Havdalah, that it will not allow a person to eat or drink, but it will allow a person to do malacha and will allow a person to light the candle. Okay? So I will actually post that on our WhatsApp group. I will post it as a voice. I'll do it. Let's see if I can do that. Baruch Hamavdil Bein Kodesh L'chol. Let's see how Siri's going to deal with that one. Baruch Hamavdil Bein Kodesh L'chol. That is what a person needs to say if Shabbat has ended and one has not yet heard Havdalah. That is what will enable a person to do non-Shabbat activities, including lighting the candle for Havdalah. Okay, that's Abdullah. Had Havdalah right the first time, then became Abdullah. Wrong religion. Okay, so that is on the app, both the how to read it and Baruch Hamavdil Bein Kodesh L'Chol. Okay, so that's there. So that's how you navigate that. Okay, all right. So again, there's a custom to overflow the cup of wine. Right, when I spent Shabbos 2 Shabbos ago, now then I spent Shabbos with our daughter Devora and her husband Eliezer. So he has the custom, even by Kiddush, that's how it's to overflow. It should always be overflowing with bracha, right? But the widespread custom is by Havdalah we overflow the cup. By Kiddush, not necessarily. Okay, so there are 4 blessings that are made as part of Havdalah. There are the introductory psukim verses. Then we make the bracha on the wine, because whenever we have a transition, we make a blessing on the wine. Give me some other examples, please. Shabbat Kiddush, transitioning from the mundane to the holy. Shabbat, Havdalah, transitioning from Kodesh L'Chol, the holy to the mundane. At a Brit Milah, at a circumcision, transition. At a wedding, transition. At a Pidyon Haben, redemption of a firstborn son, transition. Whenever we have that, we add Sheva Brachot, right? The festive 7 days after a wedding, right? Where we have a festive meal, that we pronounce 7 special blessings at the mealtime, or at the benching after a meal, right? So when we want to lend gravitas, importance, we do it over a cup of wine. So the first blessing is over a cup of wine. The next blessing, page 135, is over fragrance, over the bisamim, over different spices that we make. Okay? Interesting what he says. The reason for this, on the first, after showing the blessing over the wine, one recites Borei Minei Bisamim, on fragrant spices, and then you take a whiff of the fragrance, right? Those who join us for Havdalah over here, so you know how we do. We have little packets of the spice, and we're guests to take a little a sniff. The reason for this is that the pleasant odor of spices cheers us at the sad moment that our additional Shabbos soul is departing with the Shabbos. I just explain a little bit different than that. So we have what's called a neshama yetera, an extra soul, an extra spirituality that we have on Shabbat that leaves at the conclusion of Shabbos. And therefore, if a person is feeling weak and faint, so at least in the old days, they used to get them smelling salts. You guys ever hear that? Right? and it gives you a jolt. So as our neshama yetera is leaving us, we want to make sure that we stay on our feet, that we don't lose it. So we take a little bit of that smell. Okay. The next blessing that we make is page 136. After reciting the blessing on the fragrance, Borei Ha'esh, that is the lights of the fire. That is recited on a candle. One looks at one's fingernails and the palms of the hands by its light. Okay? So we'll see in a second over here. And it should be a braided candle or 2 candles joined together, which will have a large flame. Okay? Now, the reason that we do that is sort of technical. And that is that we have to make sure there's enough light there that you can get benefit from it. So when you put your hands there, you see the difference between the light on your fingernails and on the palm or on your fingers, and that shows that there's enough light for you to get some benefit from. But that's the custom that we do. Why do we make a blessing? So a blessing on wine, we understand. That's what lends gravitas to this event. The besamim we do, the spice we do, because we need a little pick-me-up as the extra soul is leaving us. Why are we making a blessing on the fire at this point? So there are 2 reasons why we, and it's good to know this because then we'll understand the other days when we do or don't use a fire in our Havdalah. Okay? Shabbos, there are two reasons why we have a flame there. Number one, we couldn't use the flame, we couldn't use fire all Shabbat, right? Even our cooking, right? Anything that was cooking over Shabbat was put on the fire before Shabbat and remained there. So we were not actively engaging in using the fire on Shabbat. Now we can. So therefore we make the blessing over the fire. Additionally, according to the Medrash, Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, made their first fire after Shabbat, Saturday night. So that's the time that, so to speak, fire was created. Those are the two reasons why we make a bracha on fire as part of Havdalah after Shabbat. Number one, we couldn't use the fire, and now we can. Number two, the creation of fire. So let me ask you guys a question. When Yom Tov ends, let's say Yom Tov ends on a Wednesday night, and we're going to make Havdalah, will we make a blessing over the spices? And will we make a blessing over the candle? And why? Okay, so no blessing over the spices, because the blessing over the spices relates to that extra special nishama, that added soul that we get on Shabbat. But we don't get that added soul on Yom Tov. And therefore, at the conclusion of Yom Tov, when we make our Havdalah, whether we're going from the first days of Yom Tov into the intermediary days, or the last days of Yom Tov going into end of Yom Tov, weekdays, either way, we make Havdalah, but we're not going to make the blessing over the spices because we didn't have that extra nishama. How about a blessing over fire? Do we or don't we, and why?
We don't do it because
We don't?
We don't because that's for Adam and Eve.
Good.
That
On Tuesday night,
Shabbat.
fire was not created on Tuesday night. Fire was created on Saturday night. So that reason does not apply on Yom Tov. And how about utilizing fire on Yom Tov? Can we utilize fire on Yom Tov? We can. The major difference between Shabbat and Yom Tov is ochel nefesh, food preparations. We don't ignite a fire on Yom Tov. We don't extinguish a fire on Yom Tov, but we can pass a fire over and utilize the fire and cook away on Yom Tov. So therefore, on Yom Tov, neither reason for the blessing over fire applies, and therefore after Yom Tov we don't. The Havdalah after Yom Tov will include a blessing over wine, will include the blessing of separation, Hamavdia, that God separates, etc., because there is a separation, but will not include the candle and will not include the spices. How about after Yom Kippur? Now we're getting a little bit tricky. Yom Kippur ends, let's say, on a Wednesday night. We make Havdalah. Will it include Besamim? No. There's only Neshama Yetera, only the added soul that comes on Shabbat. Not on Yom Tov, not on Rosh Hashanah, not on Yom Kippur. How about the fire, though?
No.
Well, Wednesday night fire was not created, so that reason doesn't apply. But Yom Kippur is like Shabbat, that there is no cooking and no utilization of fire. So after Yom Kippur, one of the two reasons does apply. And therefore, we will use a candle Havdalah after Yom Kippur. However, whereas on Shabbos we will strike a flame for our Havdalah candle, because there fire was created. On Yom Kippur, we won't strike a flame. We'll take it from an existing flame. Why? Because A, fire was not created, and B, the whole idea is this fire we could not utilize until now because it was Yom Kippur. Now we can utilize it. And therefore, on Yom Kippur, the Havdalah, one of the two fire reasons does apply, and therefore we will use a candle in Havdalah after Yom Kippur, but instead of creating, striking, igniting the Havdalah candle flame, as we do on Saturday night when fire was created, instead we'll just take from an existing flame to show that which we cannot utilize until now, now we can. Okay? Clear?
Yeah.
Okay. And 137, after signing the blessing on the flame, one recites the blessing of Havdalah, Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, right? Who separates between the holy and the ordinary. This is the main blessing of Havdalah, after which one drinks the wine. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
My friends used to a coin for Havdalah.
They use a what?
A coin,
A coin.
just like a coin, and he would pick up the coin and put it against the fire.
Oh,
What
okay.
is that for?
Okay, so that is again, right? We need to, well, the custom is to ascertain that there is enough light from the Havdalah candle that we could get benefit from it. So one way of doing that would be to, like I said, that's what you often would see, put their hands like this. They could see the reflection on the nails as opposed to the non-reflection on the skin, or that you could hold up a coin and ascertain what coin it is. Yeah. So that,
He did both. But
yeah.
They would do the pan like this against the fire, not like this.
Yeah, again, these are
So
all customs. Yeah, yeah. Okay. 138, exempting others with Havdalah. So you guys could write this paragraph. We don't need the book for this. What's our general rule? If someone is exempting someone else, what do we need to have? If I'm saying it for you guys, I'm saying Havdalah for everyone here. What do we need to have? I need to have you guys in mind, and you guys need to have me in mind, right? I have to have in mind that my doing this bracha, this Havdalah, will exempt you, and you need to have in mind that you want to be exempted through my Havdalah that's being made. Okay? That now. Remember, when it comes to women, this is an interesting point, right? And Lily, you brought up before, is Havdalah Shabbos or is it not Shabbos? You were asking how you're lighting the candle. And there's another bit of a conundrum that comes with Havdalah, asking, well, is it Shabbos? Is it not Shabbos? Because our typical rule is, when it comes to women and the positive commands, what's our general rule? What is our general rule? Exempted from positive time-bound mitzvot. That's why shofar, exempted. Sukkah, exempted. Lulav and etrog, exempted. Two exceptions that we had, Shabbat in general, right? Because since a woman is obligated in all the prohibitions of the Torah, and the Torah puts the don't and the do of Shabbos, that God said them simultaneously, whoever is obligated in the don't is obligated in the do. And the other one is Pesach, okay? That since the Torah puts together the Pesach, eating matzah and not eating chametz, since women are obligated to not eat the chametz on Pesach, that's the don't, that women are fully obligated in the don'ts, also obligated in the do. So let's come back to Shabbos now. So that's why women are obligated in Kiddush, even though that is a positive, time-bound mitzvah, women are obligated in that. Okay, how about Havdalah? Is Havdalah Shabbos?
No.
Then it's included in that. If Havdalah is not Shabbos, then women are exempt from that. So it is really a in-between sort of status. And therefore, a woman must hear Havdalah. But what did we say before? Can a woman make Kiddush on behalf of a man? Can a woman make the Kiddush to be motzi a man?
Yes.
A woman can. Why can she?
We're obligated to do it.
Equally obligated.
Yeah.
Right? I'm obligated, you're obligated, he's obligated, she's obligated. Equal obligation. And when there is an equal obligation, anyone can do it for the others in mind. Havdalah, there a woman would not be able to make Havdalah for a man because her obligation to Havdalah is a questionable one, whereas his obligation is a full-fledged one. And therefore, ideally, a woman will hear Havdalah made by a man. When that's not possible, for example, my dear wife, that I'm here at Shul every Saturday night, making Havdalah for everyone. So when that's not possible, then a woman will make her own Havdalah. Okay? A woman will make her own Havdalah. So a woman needs to hear Havdalah. If she's not hearing from someone else, she needs to make her own Havdalah. Okay, but she can't make it she can make it for other women, right? But she can't make it for a man because a man is absolutely obligated. A woman is somewhat questionably obligated. Just 1 second. Yeah.
It's nothing to do with discriminating women.
I'm sorry?
It's nothing to do with discriminating women.
It's not discriminating against women. Look, when it comes to these mitzvot, when it comes to these commandments, we view it that I'm not a Kohen. A Kohen has certain special mitzvot. I'm not a Kohen. Does that make me less than a Kohen? No, it makes me a non-Kohen. And as long as I'm doing the mitzvot that are relevant to me, then I'm doing exactly what I should be doing, right? The same way that men and women are physically, biologically different, we also have a different spirituality and different spiritual needs, right? I think I gave you guys the example, right? That the mitzvot are there to kind of knock us over the head. Men need lots of knocks over the head. Men need the reminders, the reminder of the tefillin, the reminder of the tzitzit, the reminder rabbinically of the kippah. We need all of these reminders. That's what the mitzvot come to do. They come to make the connection. A woman in many ways is more inherently connected and needs less of these connectors to be a fully spiritualized tzaddiket, righteous woman. Okay? So it's not that they are any less, but we are different. We are different with different spiritual needs and requirements.
Yes. So why must a woman hear Havdalah if she's not obligated?
She might be. In other words, again, Havdalah is this in between. Is it Shabbat? It's not fully Shabbat. Is it a Shabbat mitzvah? Well, it's not fully Shabbat. Is it a weekday mitzvah? Is it a non-Shabbat mitzvah? No, it certainly is connected to Shabbat. That's how we escort Shabbat out. That's how we usher out Shabbat. So she has more of a in-between, even call it a questionable status when it comes to Havdalah. So therefore, she should hear Havdalah, make Havdalah, but would not make it on behalf of a person who is bona fide obligated in it.
So would the blessing
All that, the whole
thing?
The whole text.
Okay.
The whole text of the Havdalah is what a woman would say. The same exact text that a man says is what a woman would say. Okay? Shelby?
I think that answered it, but the sentence in the middle of this one, that a man who's already fulfilled his obligation.
Okay, so let's go through that. The cousin that women do not bring to Havdalah for themselves nor they drink from the Havdalah wine if there is a man to recite it for them. Okay. A man who has already fulfilled his obligation of Havdalah should not recite it for women unless he's also reciting it for other men or boys. Okay. What's happening over there is as follows. Let's say I made Kiddush, and then someone else needs to hear Kiddush. What can I do? Make Kiddush again. Someone else needs to hear Kiddush. I'll make Kiddush again. I can make Kiddush numerous times. But 1 second, I already fulfilled my obligation. How can I make it again for them? I'm no longer obligated. So there, the very beautiful understanding is that if there is one Jew who has not yet fulfilled his mitzvah, we are all interconnected. We're all like one goof, one body, one being. And therefore, there's something lacking in my fulfillment if there's another Jew who has not yet fulfilled their mitzvah. So therefore, I can make Kiddush repeatedly. Havdalah also. If I know how to make Havdalah and someone does not know how to make Havdalah, I can make Havdalah again for them. It's not a blessing in vain, a bracha levatala, because if that person hasn't yet heard it, then I haven't yet heard it fully. I can make it again and again. But let's say a situation of a person that we're not sure if they're obligated. Now, for me to say it again might be a blessing in vain if that person is not obligated, and that's why I haven't in a while. I should remember to do it again, to continue to do that. Before, when I make Havdalah over here, if a man is going to go home and make Havdalah for his wife and daughters, but not for any sons, then that man should not have intent to fulfill his mitzvah of Havdalah with me. Because if he does, he already fulfilled his mitzvah. And now for him to go and repeat blessings for someone who might not be obligated could be entering the realm of a blessing in vain. And therefore, that person should not be Yotzei, not fulfill his mitzvah along with me. He goes home, he's fully obligated to say Havdalah for himself, and along with him saying it for himself, he'll of course have in mind his wife and daughters. That's the line over here, right? Therefore, a person should intend. A man who has already fulfilled his obligation of Havdalah should not recite it for women unless he's also reciting it for other men or boys. Therefore, a person should intend not to fulfill his obligation with Havdalah one hears in synagogue if he'll be reciting Havdalah for family afterwards. If no man is present to recite Havdalah, a woman may recite Havdalah and, of course, drink the wine. However, she should not recite the blessing on the candle. Actually, she does recite the blessing. I think the custom is that she does recite the blessing on the candle.
If, for instance, I'm just like thinking of, just to make sure to cover all bases. Say if the husband is at the shul and has, at home has the husband, or has the wife, and has a child, a son at home. He would want to make sure for sure. Like,
Bar mitzvah or not bar mitzvah, son?
That's what I was going to ask you. What's
Okay.
the age limit?
Okay. So if he has a wife and a son at home who's not bar mitzvah, so there's no one at home that's fully obligated to hear that Havdalah. And therefore, if he heard it already in shul and had an intent to fulfill his mitzvah in shul, we've got a problem for him to repeat it again. So unless there are bar mitzvah age plus boys at home, he should not be Yotzei in shul and thereby be able to go home and make Havdalah for himself, and along with himself will be Yotzei, will be fulfill the mitzvah, wife, and any children. Okay?
This is separate question. Why a woman has to be Jewish in order their children to be Jewish? Is it the law from the
That's
Torah?
derived from the Torah.
Not the oral Torah. Is it like Torah?
The oral Torah derives that from verses in the Torah itself, in the written Torah.
Do you know why is that?
That is a nod to the woman. A man cannot produce a Jew. Only a woman can produce a Jewish child.
Interesting.
Yeah. One of my soapbox. I like to get on a soapbox and rant and rave a lot. I'm a real rant and raver kind of guy, right? But there are two areas where we put the woman on a pedestal. One of them is that a woman becomes bat mitzvah at age 12 and a boy at age 13. Why is that? Because there's a certain maturity one needs to reach in order to become b'nei mitzvah. And girls reach that maturity at age 12. Boys, maybe at age 13, right? But the girls mature at an earlier age. Also, only a girl can produce a Jewish child. You have Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses of the Bible, and a non-Jewish woman. The child is not Jewish. You have a simplest, whatever it is, Jewish man, right, and a Jewish woman, right? I'm sorry. You have a Jewish woman and a non-Jewish man. Child is Jewish. Only a woman can produce a Jewish child. And one of my, an interesting point to note is that, let's say, the Reform movement, which is all about putting women on a pedestal, what do? They take her off the pedestal. And they say patrilineal descent, right? Because they were having so much intermarriage and not having so many Jews, they decided that, you know what? If either the father or the mother is Jewish, the child is Jewish. That's what the Reform movement decided, not based on halacha, but based on their numbers, trying to keep it up. And boys and girls both have their b'nei mitzvah at age 13, right? So they want to dumb the girl up to the point of being like a 13-year-old boy. And 12, 13-year-old boys are, we had a 50-year reunion of my graduating elementary school class. So I got in touch with an old friend, a guy I were very close with. We haven't been in touch for the past 45 years. We had a wonderful Zoom meeting on Sunday, just catching up on the past 50 years of our life. But we were talking about how there was one teacher, a rabbi that we had in school, that we were horrific to. And it's hard to believe just how horrible, how disrespectful we were. But as 12-year-old boys, that seemed to be okay to us. 12-year-old boys are not, here. But in general, there's some growth ahead, we hope. Let's put it like that. Yeah. So those are the times, yeah. So those are the issues that actually this is putting a Jewish woman on a pedestal, that she and only she can produce a Jewish child. And the man has nothing to do with it. It has something to do with it, but not the Judaism aspect.
A Jewish man can marry a non-Jewish woman?
No, he cannot.
I heard.
He cannot.
Because you're just saying that
if they were together,
that was the case.
If they were together, correct.
And the wife has to convert just like me.
Yeah. And then get married again.
Right, and Ryan is so excited about it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we've had many a wedding over here. It doesn't need to be a whole big lavish.
Exactly.
We've had many a wedding. The Hart family. Well, we've had situations where both husband and wife have converted. So of course they needed to have a Jewish wedding. We've had many weddings over here, and a situation like
this would be our first wedding with family.
I'm sorry, Ryan.
So
We're breaking up, Ryan. I don't hear you so well. I apologize.
I know, it scared me. I'm like, where is he?
oh, no problem.
Okay, you can put it on the chat, and then I'll read it to the crowd. Okay. Okay, last thing, and then we'll start our 39 malachot, is page 142, Malava Malka. Malava means to escort. Malka is the queen. On Saturday night, Motzei Shabbat, it is commendable to set the table and eat a meal called Malava Malka, escorting the Shabbos queen. Through this meal, we are taking leave of the Shabbos and honoring it as it departs before a new week. One should preferably have bread in this meal, but instead you could have baked goods. Okay, some of the come like candles. This is a very, very nice custom. Okay, it's preferable to have it right at the end of Shabbos. If you have no appetite, you can have the meal later. Okay, all right. So, full disclosure, I usually don't have a malava malka. Shabbos ends late. I've had so much food over Shabbos that it's, right. But it is a good thing to have malava malka, at least to have something. One thing that we didn't mention, I'm surprised, is that one is not supposed to eat, even if one did the Baruch HaMavdil bein Kodesh L'chol that I posted on our WhatsApp group. But that will allow you to do malacha. One is not allowed to eat until you hear Havdalah Saturday night. Okay? Water one can have, eating one does not do. Okay?
So you stop eating at what point? Because I know we like
When we
here,
bench.
So once
After you bench,
after you
that
bench,
would be the
okay.
end of the eating, right? Now, it's interesting to note this year where Tisha B'Av comes out on Saturday night, so we're not going to make Havdalah Saturday night. We can't drink the wine. When are we going to make Havdalah? We'll just do the blessing over the fire Saturday night, and we'll make Havdalah, a shortened version of Havdalah, Sunday night. After Tisha B'Av, we'll say Baruch HaMavdil bein Kodesh L'chol, which will allow us to drive, electronics, everything like that, but not to eat. But we're not eating anyhow until after Tisha B'Av, until Sunday night. So we're only going to make Havdalah Sunday night. I had a situation when Natalie was running camp. She used to run a girls' sleepaway camp in the Poconos for about 10 years. So I was visiting her there, and on Tisha B'Av, I decided to drive to the cemetery to where my parents were buried. And I had plenty of time to get back up to camp when Tisha B'Av would end, but there was this crazy water break on the Grand Central Parkway running through Queens, and I was stuck in traffic for hours and hours and hours. And I didn't get back to camp, and I was fasting till after midnight. Right now, I couldn't make Havdalah because I didn't have wine. Where am I going to get some wine or grape juice to make Havdalah? So I couldn't break my fast until about midnight Sunday night. But I had some seltzer in the some seltzer in the car. So water you're allowed to have before Havdalah. And I figured seltzer is basically water with some bubbles in there, right? Some carbon dioxide. It's basically water. So I ruled that I'm allowed to have the seltzer. So I broke my fast on seltzer, and then when I got back up to the country, the Poconos, that's where I davened Mariv and I made Havdalah and broke my fast. So, but we can't eat until we hear Havdalah. We can do malach if you did the Baruch HaMavdil that I posted on our WhatsApp group. One can do malacha like candle, drive, anything like that, but one can't eat besides water and seltzer until having heard Havdalah. And this year it comes out in an interesting way. Havdalah will only be on August 3rd, on that Sunday night after Tisha B'Av.
Why Shabbos compared to queen or woman?
Shabbos is a bride, right? One of the songs we sing Friday night, Lecha Dodi, is Bo'i Kala, Bo'i Kala. Welcome the bride, welcome the bride. Shabbos is considered to be, the bride, the queen. Yes, Sham.
Maybe they just didn't talk about it like crazy, but it said drink all the wine. But don't we Put the candle out?
Yeah, yeah,
Custom
yeah.
or-
Yeah, yeah. Definitely the custom is to use some of the wine to put it out, drink all the wine. Yeah, these are different. Let me see what it said over there. I did see that. I didn't read that. It doesn't. I think it said that no one else should drink from it before. Right? They say over there that would be 134. Did they say you have to drink the whole thing?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Right? Once you drink most of the cup, that's the same thing as by kiddush. Yeah, 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 yeah. I think. Yeah. I don't think you have to. I don't think it's like the whole cup. All right, my friends. Good. So next week we're on. I will see you all then. Please God. Ryan, what did you want to say before? Maybe we can hear you now. Maybe not.